Hello. Hello, beautiful people. This is Courtney from Stars of the Morning Light. I am trying to go live. I have never done this before. So if anyone is out there, hi, hello. Good to be with you at the same time. If you are here, I believe the chat is open. So you can start chatting away with me today, because this is very much a me figuring out how this works. And it is very odd that it seems very blurry on my side. So I hope it's not as blurry for you. It might be. Who knows? I will most likely go back and play and see how this goes. But hello, I am Courtney from Stars of the Morning Light. Stars of the Morning Light, if you don't know, is a spiritual resource platform for all sorts of stuff. Free resources like free meditations. There's over 200 meditations so far. Free blogs. I just wrote one yesterday that's going to kind of tie into today. So you can check that out. Because this is live, I'm not really sure how I'm going to attach things, but maybe I can do it at the very end. Who knows? So if anyone's out there, hi, anyone who is already subscribed to Stars of the Morning Light, I'm here. I'm with you. I am present. It is Wednesday, a random Wednesday in January afternoon. I chose to try to go live with this because I was supposed to go live with an Akashic Records reading right at the turn of the year. And it was like, oh, I don't know anything that's happening here on this system. And I was unable to do that. So I'm trying to go live with you now so I can at least know what's happening. I'm so not with technology. Today I wanted to talk about, because this is our midweek, like vocabulary and weekly goal. And it's always like, why do you do that midweek? Well, because when we start our weeks, we are definitely not really thinking so much about goals. I mean, let's get real. We don't really get hip to the fact that the week's even begun until like Tuesday. And usually we're like, man, is this week not over? So come on, we're going to, I'm trying to be real about this. So today I want to talk about Ascension, because I talk about Ascension a lot. And I realized I've never even really described what it is. And of course, if you go into any dictionary, it was wild when I was like, okay, let me go to my little handy dictionary. My old school Webster's dictionary, like, wanted me to go all the way back to ascend and then keep going down, like ascend, ascendance, ascendant, ascension, and all basically to say the same stuff. When we talk about spiritual ascension, though, that is mind, body, soul, lifting up to higher dimensions, higher frequencies, higher ideals, belief systems, communication, especially more telepathic communication. And if you are first here, please go back and watch some of the videos, because we are about to get into some heavy stuff. And so the first many videos, and I'm going to actually be doing one soon about the human free will. If you haven't watched the videos, please, because they are like the foundation to then really getting into the meat of ancient texts and what goes on. So Ascension, because I bring it up a lot in the videos, it could be from when we were talking in the first video about like the 3D, the error, the fog, the forgetfulness. It can represent going higher into the fourth, the fifth, the sixth dimensions, even though 6 is just a portal, 7 dimension, 8 dimension. That's what ascending is. But I think a lot of people, because this term is used very loosely now, a lot of people either they do one or two things. They either put too much emphasis on it, too much, because we are still human, and when we put too much emphasis on, I gotta get higher, I gotta get to the next level of this video game matrix, we tend to start losing the fact that we are human and there are process, that we have to go through. I apologize for that glare, my lovely people. What if I do this for you? See if that helps. Once again, trying to figure out how to do this is a little wonky to me, but that's, I guess, a different scope or a different look as to what my office looks like. That is a pyramid behind me that I sit under to meditate. So I apologize for the glare, but I shouldn't, because that means the sun is out. Yes. And then there's the other folks who don't take Ascension seriously at all. The school of thought that this is our one life. Either you live it to the fullest or you don't. There is no expansion. There is no, why are you doing that? Trust in everything else other than yourself. So there's oftentimes like these two extremes going on. And so no, when we talk about Ascension, it is in piecemeals. It is, like in the last video that was extremely long and took 23 hours to render. I have no idea what that was all about. There's a lot of talk in there about how we have to change our mind. And oftentimes it's like, to go forward, we have to go backwards first and undo all of this thinking, all this programming, as many like to refer to it as, before we can even open our minds to an ascended state. So Ascension, if you look it up in the dictionary, it really just means to go higher, to evolve into a higher position, state of mind, what have you. And that is what we all are trying to do. And we are at this time right now of the Great Awakening, I call it the Great Awareness, the Great Awakening, the ultimate grand opening of the ascension process for all humanity. We are entering that time. And so many of us who have started this many, many moons ago, we are here for support. Okay. I will say though, like the blog I wrote yesterday, you can find it at starsofmorninglight.com. It was about ascension anger, because oftentimes the first thing that happens when we come into this great awareness, and it can be awareness that shows itself in little ways, and it can be awareness that shows itself in like huge ways. But the Great Awakening is really coming into this grand awareness. And oftentimes when that happens, the initial reaction from us humans is anger. Like anger and awareness are, they're in bed together. Oftentimes one comes with the other. So the past, I don't know, a couple of weeks, the turn of the year, the 2022 year, really the energies around throughout. It was lovely because it was a part of this great awareness, this great awakening, but there was a lot of anger. There was so much Ascension anger that I was just like, ooh, I can't. Ooh, but I'm here to help. So I've gone through the anger. Okay, I've gone through the none of this is okay. Because anger within us humans is not only is it a part of the ego that we talk about in one of the previous episodes. And remember, we got to keep our ego right size, cleansed, keep pride where it needs to be. Anger is an indicator of something's wrong here. So when we get angry at things and appropriate anger, not, just random, but appropriate anger, which does come out of the awareness process, the awakening process. It's not a bad thing because it really does indicate to us humans, that something is not right. Something is wrong here. Something is not aligned with my heart-centered consciousness. My heart, my gut is telling me this is not right. All sorts of things. And we will eventually at one point talk about the gut and how it's aligned with our consciousness. Or maybe we already did in a video. I don't remember. There's a lot that goes on up here, folks. If you are just joining, this is Stars of the Morning Light live for the first time. Thank you if you are out there watching and listening. Hit that like button. So this Ascension anger, appropriate, it's right, it's honest to yourself. It's more, though, what I want to focus on is what do we do with it? You know what I mean? Like to react in anger, to proceed in anger is not good for ourselves or anyone else. Yet it is very present at the beginning of awakening process. So what do we do? What are we thinking? How do we, because it's hard. I have never once, and I don't think any teacher, any master at any great skill in regards to spiritual ascension, will ever say that this is easy. I guess this is just coming off the top of my head right now. I did not write this down, but I will say, so when I was 14, 14, this is who I am. So if anybody knows, I am a numerology number 33. So my life was very interesting, still is very interesting. So I grew up with a lot of turmoil in my life. So by the time I was 14, I kind of had this, I kind of formed this game plan in my brain to get to some resolution with all that has happened. And the first part of that for me was, I want to make sure my phone does not go off. The first part for that for me when I was 14 was knowledge. And what I mean by that is, I wanted to gain all the knowledge I could about my mother and her side of the family, my father and his side of the family, social, economical issues that were present when they were growing up and as they were raising me. Because, as kids, we didn't know, in the 70s, it was, the gas shortage and all sorts of recession. And, you don't know that, that your parents were they've lived through that. So in that process of gaining this knowledge, I mean, like, I would ask everybody, what was my parents' lives like growing up? You know, because people, we only know what we know, and we only know how to do what we know how to do until we know different. Okay. And so I spent a lot of time gaining the knowledge of who my parents were. And this is just me using this format to explain a much broader picture. Okay. So I wanted to gain all the knowledge I could. All right. And really sit with that. And out of sitting with that, I was able to form some understanding, because understanding comes through experience. And that's why we say the whole statement of, you don't really know until you walk a mile in someone else's shoes, right? Well, I did live with my parents. I mean, I did grow up with them. I did have all these things. So it was easier for me to be like, okay, I'm going to step into their shoes, step into their mindset. And one of the greatest things I ever learned, which most people don't come to until at least their 20s or 30s, that your parents have a life completely outside of you. They were human beings before you, they were human beings after you were born, and continue to be. And they have a life that actually a whole part of lots of parts of their lives have nothing to do with you. They're working out their own stuff. They're working out their own ascension. um, but with that understanding, first I had to have full knowledge. Like, I mean, I really, really went to it. I even studied, like, what was Waukegan, Illinois like back in the day, to get a better understanding, because that's where I grew up. I mean, I went balls to the walls with trying to gain knowledge about what all shaped my parents. Then I was able to take that knowledge and really sit with it. I mean, I really had to sit with it so I could get full understanding of who they were as their own individual human selves, and how they operated, and the issues they might have had, and how a lot of things just trickle down generation after generation. Well, then I had to get to acceptance. Acceptance. I had to first, so full knowledge. I mean, I studied like heck, wrap my head around understanding, trying to really put myself in their shoes. Well, with that came acceptance. Okay, things were and are as they are because people only know what they know until they know something different. And through that acceptance, really, really accepting, shit happens. And I've been in counseling a lot in my life, and I do recommend counseling. But getting to that acceptance, psychological acceptance. In my blog yesterday, I wrote, that does not mean you're in agreement with how things played out or how things are playing out in the current time. That does not mean you agree with it. That means that you are acknowledging, in full acknowledgement, it is what it is what it was, right? So with that full acceptance, not fighting it anymore, much easier after acceptance to come to some kind of resolution. And my resolution was, at that time as a kid, okay, I might be a product of my parents. And I don't want to, my parents are lovely people, don't get me wrong. I love both of them. But people are young when they have kids, and things are, a little messed up at times. I was able to come to the resolution after my full knowledge, coming into understanding then acceptance, I came to a resolution that even though I am a product of that environment, I am a product of my parents, I am a product of the programming that they were even under. Okay. I'm not that. That my full being is not my upbringing. That my full being can be whatever I choose it to be. That I'm not pigeonholed by other people's experiences that trickled down and affected my life. And I always used to tell my students, your past does not define who you are. What you do in the moment does. The choices we make in a moment is what defines us. So for some reason I wanted to say that. Who knows? Probably because this is live and I can do whatever I want. With that being said, though, think about that. Knowledge, understanding, acceptance, resolution. Okay? That is a process you can go through to relieve some of the ascension anger. Many of us, we come into this with the great awareness, the great awakening. Our first initial reaction is anger because we feel like we've been duped. Oftentimes, like I've been duped. So it is also an element of pride and ego, but putting that aside, okay, that is how you can get through a lot of it. Okay. I also wrote in the blog, it's like awareness, acceptance, action. Awareness, acceptance, action. You can also take those steps. But I will say, always try to gain as much knowledge as you can. And then try to put yourself in someone else's shoes, someone else's situation, what have you. Or even in your own, go back. Because oftentimes, remember, we have to, in order to go forward, we actually have to go back. Go back to when I was like, okay, I had an inkling this was not right, but I just went along with the protocol and I can understand why I did that. So we can have compassion to ourselves and others. But gain the knowledge. Gain all sorts of knowledge before you react in this anger. Because once you can have that full knowledge, full understanding that goes into acceptance, okay, it is what it is. That doesn't mean that it has to be. That doesn't mean that it can't change. It just is what it is right now, or has been. Into forming a mature ascension plan, like action plan. That is the mature state of an ascended or an ascension progression, is to not just react in full-on anger, because that's not going to get us anywhere. Remember in the last video when we talked about the mind and how the mind operates, and we're about to go into that right now, okay? In the last video, we talked about, I kept posing the question, okay, if we break out of the matrix, cool, that's awesome, break free, but then what? So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. And I hope some of you are with me. If you have any questions or you want to highlight anything that I'm saying, the chat is open. So good to be with you, lovely people. And it is a random Wednesday right in the middle of the day. So I'm not expecting a bunch of people to jump on, especially because I appreciate my loyal 21 subscribers. I love you guys. I'm not even sure who all you are. I love you, though. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. If anyone out there is interested in what they're hearing right now from me, um, amen. Awesome. Good. Subscribe, watch more videos, because it is just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper. So speaking about that, our mind can create whatever the hell we really want. So before we just out of anger, like just break out of the matrix and we're angry, and let's not bring that with us into what we are going to create via the mind. You see what I'm saying? Let's not carry this garbage in with us. So one of the best stories of the power of the mind is actually it's a Yogic lore, Yogic. Okay. Other people I've known, I don't pronounce things all that great. I am such a Chicago mouth that I only do A's and O's, it seems. But one of their big stories is of the wishing tree. It's, give me a second. Kalpavriksha. It always sounds more Russian when I say it than Indie, and Kalpavriksha. I will put the name is somewhere in the description. It is the Hindi story of the wishing tree, the Yogic lore, like folklore. And all the stories I'm going to tell right today, I am not actually reading. Most of the videos I do, I'm reading and I'm doing my thing, and I teach from ancient texts. Today, though, because I wanted to really focus on what does it look like to go live, I decided, which now I see, you pretty much just see my face. So I am going to just tell the story of multiple different stories, okay? So keep it in mind that in your mind that your mind is very powerful. This is the story of the wishing tree. And I'm just going to tell the story. So long ago, there was a man who decided to take a walk. And he walked, and he walked, and he walked, and he walked a very, very, very long time. And he entered paradise without even knowing. He entered paradise. And after walking for such a long time, he realized he was tired and wanted to sit and relax and rest. And he saw a beautiful tree that with soft pillow, fluffy grass underneath it. And he said, that's a perfect place to rest. So he sat underneath and fell asleep and slept for a long time. And when he awoke, he felt very rested, still not knowing he was in paradise. And he said, man, I'm hungry after resting for so long. And he was thinking about all the delicious food he wanted to eat. And all of a sudden it was there before him. So he ate. Hungry people eat. After eating all this delicious food, he thought, oh, I'm thirsty. I want to drink. And before any thought of all the wonderful wines and different drinks he wanted to drink, and then they were there before him, and he drank. And thirsty people drink. After drinking, he was a bit drunk. And this is where the story actually kind of what we would call maybe like a footnote goes in to talk about Darwinism, and how we, in the theory of Darwin, just come from monkeys. basically because we have the only difference between us and a monkey is that we have a drop larynx and we got rid of our tail. And so it goes in to talk about pay attention to how monkeys work. You can teach a monkey a whole lot of things, but it's just imitation. It's imitating what they're seeing, what the other person or monkey is doing, and how we are much more than just monkeys. And it goes back to the story. And so this drunk man, after receiving all the food he ever thought of, all the drink that he had thought of, did not know that he had entered heaven, paradise, and he was sitting under the wishing tree. A wishing tree that would give you all that you think. Manifestation. And so we kind of came to after looking around, and he realized, wait a minute, I just ate everything I wanted to eat. I just drank everything I wanted to drink. Where did this come from? And instead of thinking of miracles, instead of thinking anything positive, or thinking of his own mental power, he thought, there must be ghosts here. With that, ghosts were there. And he thought, these ghosts are going to terrorize me. So the ghosts started terrorizing him. And while being terrorized, he thought, these ghosts are going to kill me. So he died. It does say, and I in that beautiful story, and I will, once this is up and posted, I am going to put an actual guru who can do this story much better than I. I'll attach some kind of video or story by them. In there, though, it does say, if we do not control our mind, if we do not know the power of our mind, if we do not rewire our mind, if we go forth in ascension anger instead of pausing and reflecting and communicating and gaining knowledge and understanding, we will create an accidental and half bizarre world. So that ties into the last video and what will kind of be a weekly goal. So our vocab this week was just Ascension. Okay. Really wrap your head around what that looks and feels and is to you. No matter where you are in it, no matter what level, because even if you are at a level, let's just stop for a moment and imagine that, okay, Ascension is kind of like a video game, even though I've never really played video games. Ascension is like a video game. Let's say you get to level, I don't know, 7 or 8. Okay, I don't know what the difficulty of video games. And you're there and you're doing your thing and you've learned all these skills and you've learned all these skills. Isn't it that like halfway through that level, you come into some kind of battle that you just can't fight, or you keep, I don't know, ending the game because it actually requires you to remember a skill from the first level and you completely forgot it? That's where we're at. So no matter where you're at, however your memory is coming back to you, whatever your ascension process you're at, you could be jumping back and forth to, I got this skill over here, I still need to work on this over here, I am feeling a lot of that anger out of awareness right now, how do I get out of it? All sorts of things. It jumbles and moves around. But always remember that our minds are extremely powerful. It is All Is Mind is this series. All Is Mind is this first lesson that is going to take like 2 years for us to get through. All is mind. That wishing tree that man was sitting under is creation. We are creation. We have that power. We can manifest. Let's not create a new world that is accidental and half bizarre. That comes from the Yodic lore. Accidental, half bizarre. So I'm also going to start moving into some other stories, because I will say it was interesting when I think it was Monday or something. I was actually in the Akashic Records for myself, personal matters for myself. And, but when I was there, I said, hey, I'm supposed to do a vocab and weekly goal this week. I have no clue right now. I've been focused on so many other things. And they said Ascension and Mulberry story. So when I started looking up different Mulberry stuff, and I did have to stop them and say, does that represent what you told me like 15 years ago, Mulberry? And they're like, no, start a new search. And I went, okay. And that brought me all over the place. That brought me all over the place. So then I had to kind of narrow it down as to what are you trying to help people understand through me? What's the message supposed to be? So first, Ascension. Look it up. And not just, we all basically know what it means. Go higher. But gain your full awareness and knowledge of what that means for you. It's going to look different, feel different, be different. Your action plan for Ascension is going to be different. Everyone is going to be different, which is beautiful and lovely, and God bless it. I love it. Find out what it is for you. So I want to go into, this is from the Bible. And once again, I'm not reading anything right here. This is from 2 Samuel 5:23 and 24. So because I do ancient texts here, the Bible is a part of it. So is the Yodic lore of the wishing tree that we just did. So let's just say in 2 Samuel, it's very interesting because it's kind of like, okay, now they're talking about like King David does become king of Israel. He is anointed by the Israel people. He becomes king of Judah and Israel. He has already once beat the Philistines. He did, so we know, just real small tidbit, he did reign in Judah and Israel for 33 years. There's going to be a large series when we go into 33. So, King David, newly kind of king. He beat the Philistines at a different time, but now they're back. They're in the valley, and David turns to the Lord, and he says, because he was anointed by the Lord, he turns to the Lord and he says, should I just go down there and, kick their butts again, like I did before? Should I just go down there and do what I do? Because you actually do it for me, God. You've gone before me many a times. Should I just go and get rid of these guys? And the Lord says, no. We sorry, that's a little, that tends to maybe happen. As you keep going with Stars of the Morning Light, you'll see why that little Freudian slip happens. The Lord says, no, I want you to go around the back end and wait under, some versions will say poplar tree, others will say mulberry tree. But the Lord says, go stand under the mulberry tree and watch them. But what I really want you to do is I want you to listen for when the leaves on the top of the mulberry tree start sounding like troops are marching. That is when I want you to attack, because that means that sound represents I am going before you and I will take care of this. I've studied the Bible over and over and over again. There was about a 5-year period in my life that I was like intensely and grossly studying the Bible. And I don't remember, I mean, yes, I read it, don't get me wrong, but I don't remember such a profound meaning to that. And what it really represents is God saying, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, okay, you might feel like you've already had a triumph. This is a whole lot of pride going on, a whole lot of ego going on. I do need to go before you. And thank you for still asking, that sort of thing. It really is, hey, we got to get our pride out of the way and wait for the signs and the wonders as to when to go forth. So we can apply that to anything, especially with Ascension anger. We tend to, man, that anger, it gets us boiling inside to the point that it is human nature to want to go on the attack. But let's learn from King David for a moment, who said, what do you want me to do? And the Lord said, you have to wait for my signs and wonders. Get your pride out of the way and wait for signs and wonders. And the sign and wonder through that was the leaves moving on top of the mulberry tree. So these are the reason I'm bringing these stories up is because the goal this week, like I said, is identify where you are in your ascension journey right now. The best way of knowing how to ascend higher is to know where you are in the current moment, in the now. So let's identify where and truly be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with others. And it is always fluctuating. I mean, I'll have a day here that I am just not happy. I am not happy. But instead of long stretches of time from when I first started this process and I had to work through a lot of my anger, I now have a random day that I am really pissed and I'm not even sure why, Let's use this week. It's Wednesday the 12th, whatever next Wednesday is. Let's use this week or whenever you're watching this video, okay? Let's use this time to really identify, where am I? Be honest with yourself. Where am I in this process? Because I'm not trying to call nobody out, and that's why I don't use names, but I will say I do Akashic record readings, and I am very kind and loving when I'm definitely present doing them, because there's no other way I can be while I'm in that dimension. I mean, it is love and light. But oftentimes I will be doing a reading and the client, I will say, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or this is what's happening, and oftentimes that client will respond with, oh, I'm already doing that. Oh, I already took care of that. And I just somehow gently keep going back to it, because the records ain't gonna lie. Sorry. The records aren't gonna lie. I can clearly see. But what happens with us humans, myself included, trust me, is that we do a little bit of work. We put that Band-Aid on that wound. And for some reason, our pride and ego wants to say, oh, I already took care of that. That issue's gone for me. And I'm not saying we can't fully yes, heal and work through our issues, and yes, become a completely different person on the other side. If y'all knew me when I was in my teens and early 20s, you would definitely be saying it. A different person can be on the other side of it. What I'm saying is that often is said via, and I've had many clients, so I'm not calling any one particular person out that does this. And I used to do it nonstop, and now I can see how it was irritating to others. We have to get honest with ourselves. We really have to get honest with ourselves because we do so much logic thinking. I put that Band-Aid on. That wound should be healed and perfect now. I'm just going to keep carrying on when our actions, our words, our thoughts are saying something completely different. So we really need to get honest with ourselves this week. Find out where we truly are with our ascension, in our ascension process, ascension progression, our mindfulness action plan. Where are we with this stuff? So we can, really, really successfully bring in a world that is not accidental and half bizarre, right? So that's our goal. So the reason I brought up the 2 Samuel 5:23-24, the wind or the sounds through the tops of the mulberry tree that the Lord said to David, do not proceed until you see this, is maybe let's not proceed in anger, but wait until we have that refreshing signs of wonders after we've already done the reflection, really looked at ourselves, really looked at where we are, and allow the signs and wonders to move us a bit forward. Because synchronicities are there, right? Signs and wonders are there. There is magic. But we're not going to be able to see the magic through the anger. So that, we've now done 2 stories. I'm going to end with, this is what really started this whole journey for me when my guides were like, Mulberry. And I realized they had nothing to do with a message from 15 years ago. So right now, planetarily wise, we are very much looking at same kind of planet rotations in a way, let's say, and this is very generic right now because I'm not doing that for this video. I actually don't even really do astrology. My mother was big into astrology, so I let that be her thing. But I do appreciate, and I listen to people that are very skilled in that area. So right now, though, in general terms, a lot of our planetary movement is very similar to the time period of the 1860s and 1880s, that whole span of 20, 30 years. I always do things in 30 years. I always look at things of 30 years. That we are in that same kind of planetary energy in a way. We kind of we can use it for our benefit, but what was interesting when they first said Mulberry, everything that was pulled up originally when I just Googled Mulberry, other than some fashion designer, I don't know who the hell that is, it brought me to the story of Mulberry Bend from the 1888. And I thought that was interesting, tying all this together with where are our minds at, where are we in our ascension process, and what are some action steps we can take. The story of Mulberry Bend is actually, it's true. It's a true story of Jacob Riis. Jacob Riis, God, thank God for that guy. in 1890, so actually 2 years after this story took place that I'll tell you about, went around in New York, and he was the first to take pictures of the conditions, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and oh, I'm getting chills, of people that were living in like tenums, living in filth, living in poverty. I mean, poverty, tenums. And he published all these pictures as how the other half lives. It was the first time, even though there had been newspaper articles, which he was a newspaper journalist, okay? Even though there had been newspaper articles nonstop about the conditions that people were living in, even though there was that, on a grand scale, most people didn't really pay attention or give a shit now, did they? Until he photographed these children, these grown adults, how they were crammed in these little rooms. So horrible. I'm sure many of you know the history there. I will say the movie Gangs of New York was done very well. I want to make very clear that riot at the end, that is based on very much actual an event, a riot that happened. There were also lots and lots of riots all over the place during that time. But that one was like a climactic riot. What people don't know is there were a ton of Black people that were randomly hung and killed during that. Just a horrible, horrible riot. If you haven't seen Gangs of New York, maybe watch that to get a little bit. I'm not saying base your history off of Gangs of New York. I'm saying, but the end scene, that was a very true, insane riot. And honestly, that movie, even though it did a great job, it's still, there's no way we can even comprehend what that was like. He was drawing light, Jacob Riis, on that stuff. It was horrible. The turn of the Industrial Revolution. So, the story of Mulberry Bend, though, is actually from 2 years before he started taking those pictures to get more awareness. He lived across the way, had to take a ferry into New York to, write his newspaper. And so every morning when he would get off the ferry, he would watch and look around at things to then go write, his newspaper article. He would look for, if there are fires anywhere, or if there was a robbery or whatever, as he's walking to work. Well, oftentimes he had to walk through what people would what it was always called the 5 points. If you don't know the 5 points, then you can look into even later on, like Lucky Luciano. I mean, the 5 points was always a bad area. It is Mulberry Street. I mean, it's a bad area, okay? Love you all out in 5 points. Love you all. But it always was. That is where Gangs of New York really takes place. I mean, a lot always went down in there, okay? So he would have to walk through kind of that area, 5 points in New York. And one day a kid stopped him, and the alleys were so dark and dirty and disgusting and horrible. And a young boy stopped him, probably asking him for money. And he said he didn't have any money. And the boy said, well, my mom's sick. And he said, well, why don't you bring her some, I can bring you some flowers. I have tons of flowers that grow on my, grow in the country where I live. I'll bring you some flowers. And that little boy said, what are flowers? And he tried to explain that flowers come in all different, he tried to describe flowers to the boy and how flowers make people feel better. And some flowers are this color, red, blue, green, orange, that they come in all sorts of colors and shapes, sizes, and smells. And flowers can make people happier. Well, the next day, he remembered to bring the boy flowers from the countryside that he lived in that was covered in different flowers. And he taught the boy how to plant them. And all these kids were around watching, excited. What is this rare thing of a flower? And the next day, he brought more flowers for all the kids to plant. And these kids were so excited. So excited. I mean, they were planting them, any place they could find. In the cracks of the sidewalk, in the cracks of their buildings. They're trying to plant as many as they have. Well, Jacob, being the newspaper man, wrote a story about this. And that story enticed hundreds of other people saying, here, I have a ton of seeds. I have tons of flowers. Give them to the children. Give them to the children. And so they did. And within 10 years, Mulberry Bend, near 5 Points, New York, looked and felt and was completely different. So, we have a lot to look at this week. Where are we at in our ascension process? We have to start acknowledging that our mind is extremely powerful. Imagine that your own self is that wishing tree. We've got the story of 2 Samuel 5:23-24, waiting on signs and wonders before we take action. And we got the beautiful story of Mulberry Bend. We're just planting seeds and flowers. Changed everything, even if it was for a small group of people. So lovely, friends. If this is your first time visiting Stars of the Morning Light, thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. Visit starsofthemorninglight.com for all sorts of spiritual resources. I did write a blog about this stuff too, but I used the wisdom of the Cherokees to be represented there. So if you want another opinion on how to handle ascension anger, you can go there to starsofthemorninglight.com and read that free blog. I love you all. I hope this worked well. I hope that being live is something that I can continue to do. I plan then very soon to have interviews and also to just be live with all of you at some time. And I will just answer questions from anything from ascension to aliens to the Matrix to how the only true reality is love. Any question. So I do plan on doing this. If you have not subscribed yet, stick with us. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell. You're gonna want to be with Stars of the Morning Light. Be with your fellow stars. Learn, embrace, grow, change. Be the star in your own ascension. I love you all. Hit that like button. Peace out. Bye, guys.